Hi, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about what are the odds of you finding the one. Now, before we start, I wanted to brush up on the subject of what exactly is the one, who is he or she, and just in general, the idea of soulmates. Because uh, I was inspired by the Tinder swindler, rather, the new Netflix documentary that came out. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, but yeah, spoilers ahead for it in case you haven't seen it. But basically, it's about this guy who managed to come across and present himself as this, jet setter, super rich guy who was just going to sweep any girl off her feet and offer her basically this amazing life. And a few girls fell for it. At least in the documentary, they presented three. And if I'm being honest, it's not. I'm not trying to victim blame or anything like that. It's just I found myself quite annoyed with the first girl just because she came off as very naive, and I was watching her interview and I was thinking, I mean, of course she got swindled. Look at her. But then I was thinking, hmm, would I have behaved the same way? Could this have happened to me? Right? Because I'm thinking, oh, I'm this rational person, but am I really? Is am I really? So before we judge her, it is a little bit difficult. But so I wanted to just brush up on the idea of what a soulmate is, because it's very interesting, if I'm being honest, because the idea of the one and having someone who's perfect for you, who's just out there roaming the earth and you just need to find him or her, comes dates back from ancient Greece. Last summer I was reading the symposium, Plato's Symposium, and basically what he said, they were talking about how there was this, like, the myth goes that once humans were these beings, like, I guess they were round beings, and they had two heads, four arms, four legs, and at one point Zeus got annoyed with them and their pride, so he split them up into two, and basically they were doomed forever to roam the earth searching for their other half, which, I mean, it's kind of a romantic story, I guess, in a way. And also, by the way, one thing that wherever I've read this story, a lot of people are, I've never actually seen this pointed out, but he makes a point about LGBTQ plus people in that story, because he also says that, oh, it can be, if a man and another man come together, or a man and a woman and another woman come together, that's how it was meant to be. That is what it was, their other half, right? So yeah, it was very interesting that even back then it was considered perfectly natural to be gay or lesbian. So progress 2,000 years later, we are still debating this for some unknowable reason. But anyway, so yes, soulmates, that dates back to ancient Greece, probably even older than that. The thing is, for most of human history, marriages have been prearranged, because at the end of the day, marriages were used to advance someone's health. And even to this day, one of the biggest the biggest economic decision you can make as a person is who you're going to marry. So it is a very important thing. You cannot just go, I guess, nilly-willy, just marrying anyone you want, I guess, to an extent. But yeah, for the most part of human history, that is how marriages happened. And to this day, in many countries, that is still how it's happening. We have prearranged marriages. However, in the last maybe 50 years, things have started to shift a little bit, right? Because more and more, for example, more women now are in the workforce. They're becoming more independent. So getting married is not necessarily the thing that is going to, define your economic status. Also, another thing that's happening is that the rise of the middle class. More and more people are willing to, or not willing, but rather they're capable of just jumping the gap, right? And just managing to elevate themselves to a higher socio-economic status. So they're able to earn more money, and just take themselves, just basically level up without marrying, that is to say. So being married, it's kind of becoming this thing it's not a necessity, right? We don't need that particular, um, I guess, element of our life to be fulfilled, so to say. However, we've come to romanticize it in a way where being, married is tied more to, yeah, basically finding the one, because you have options, right? So why not, wait for the perfect person, that one person who's going to fulfill you and make you happy. And yeah, doesn't that make sense? When I was a teenager, I used to think, yeah, maybe, I guess that makes sense. The thing is, it really doesn't, does it? I mean, waiting for someone and expecting that person to be perfect. I mean, first of all, no one is perfect. Second of all, just sitting around waiting for some unknowable destiny to come along, it's such a unrealistic way of looking at life, because at the end of the day, everything is about work, everything is about, working on the relationship. And there have been studies that prove that whatever levels of happiness you had before a relationship, after you enter a relationship, yes, there will be a spike in your happiness levels, because you will be experiencing this honeymoon stage. However, pretty soon, like maybe in a couple of months or 3 months, 4 months, however long the honeymoon period lasts, afterwards your happiness levels will decline, and they will drop down to wherever they were before you started the relationship. So kind of, putting all the pressure on your partner to quote unquote save you and, fulfill you and make you happy, that doesn't happen, that doesn't work. And I mean, it's such a big pressure to put on one person, and then whenever they don't live up to your already unrealistic expectations, you find it really easy to ditch them. This is at least what scientists have, noticed. People who believe in the so-called soulmates theory or myth or whatever you want to call it, they tend to give up on relationships much faster, because they don't think they need to work on a relationship in order to make it successful. Because I mean, if it's the one, right, what is there to work on? I also do think that rom-coms and Disney movies have played a part in this, because I know for myself, when I was a teenager, I was thinking, well, why can't I find this one guy who will, because I was very shy and awkward and etc. So I was like, why can I find this guy who's going to come and save me? I mean, I was realizing how stupid that sounded, but at the same time, it was a nice notion. And especially nowadays, when we have all of these dating apps and we have all of this chaos around us, and at the same time, we are lonelier than we've ever been, because I mean, there is this distance, right? It's really difficult to meet someone in person, because over the last year, I've tried, okay? I started dating, and honestly, I had to rely on dating apps for the most part, because it's just really difficult. I guess nobody wants to put in the time and energy to go out to certain places and try and meet people. It's much easier to, present a pretty front, and then, put that out there and expect for people to say, oh, you're amazing, let's find eternal love. And if you think about it, everyone is looking for the same thing, just somebody to travel with and watch Tinder, sorry, not Tinder, Netflix, Netflix, not Tinder. Yes, and to cook with and all of these things. And it's like, yeah, we all want that, but I mean, how much can you tell based on a profile, really? Mm, but yeah, so basically, inspired by the Tinder swindler, I wanted to explore more a little bit about what exactly it means to find the one. And one thing that I actually really like, in my mantra personally, I mean, not only in my dating life, but also in life in general, is not to try and find the one, but actually try and become the one. What that means is that you work on yourself, you work on your personal growth, you work, I mean, even physically. Like, if you can become a better version of yourself, then why not? I mean, why wait around for someone to notice your inner beauty when you can actually go and do something about it? Because whether we like it or not, alike attracts alike. And if you want to have somebody with a six pack, let's say, like, for example, in my case, maybe I should hit the gym every once in a while, right? So this actually came to me a couple of years ago, well, a few years ago already, when I was just listening to what my single friends were talking about, and they had all of these lists of people, like, I want to meet a guy who's rich and handsome and kind and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And I was thinking, okay, you're describing this amazing human being, and at the same time, you cannot make a compromise over which movie to go and watch, for example. I mean, this is an exaggerated example, but you get the point. It's very, yeah, it's just, we all have, I mean, I'm sure that for guys it's the same. We all have these requirements, and at the same time, we're not that willing to work on ourselves and make ourselves a person who will be worth making sacrifices for, if that makes sense. Just, it's a two-way street is what I'm saying. And so yeah, I remember at that point, for example, I was much heavier than I am right now, and I thought, okay, I mean, I do want to find somebody who has a healthy lifestyle and who's fit. So how can I do that? Well, I cannot do it by sitting on my butt and watching movies all day and eating junk food. Like, that's just not going to happen. So yeah, so that's when I started, working more towards, not exactly towards who I want to be with, but rather who I want to be as a person, who I see myself as. So yeah, that that was basically my thought process at the time, and I do think I mean, it's a healthy way of looking at relationships, because if you wait for somebody to save you, that's just not going to happen, and you're just setting yourself up for disappointment, and for getting hurt and hurting somebody who potentially you may care for. And it's proven that people who believe that a relationship takes work, they do go on to have lasting, longer lasting relationships, and more fulfilled relationships. So in that spirit, I wanted to, I actually found an article, and I will link it in the description below. But basically this guy made a table with percentages and with formulas that take into consideration the approximate size of the whole world. And then if you put in your requirements, let's say your ideal, requirements, let's put them as requirements. So if you take them and you put them in this spreadsheet, basically the formula is going to calculate out of the whole entire population, and based on the percentages that you put in, how many people are going to meet that criteria. So I did that, and because of course, I do have an idea as well. I also want to meet, somebody who's, well, I'll go through the criteria in a second, but I do have my criteria as well. And at the same time, I wanted to see, what are the odds of that happening? What are the odds of finding the one? So as I said, I'll link the article in the description below. You can also to the spreadsheet, so you can also take a look for yourself, and maybe you do this exercise as well. I personally found it enlightening. I imagined it would be something similar to the end result that it happened, but it was also interesting and intriguing to see, basically to see the end result. But so I wanted to put level of, so let's start with the criteria. We have approximately 7 billion people on Earth. Of course, the population is growing, it fluctuates, so let's put it at 7 billion at the time of the recording. So out of those, let's say that I want to meet a man. Approximately men versus women. I know that, some stats say that women are slightly more percentage-wise than men. However, I think it was at 50.31% of the population. So, I mean, that isn't that much of a difference. So I've put in 50% of the population is male. I want to meet people who are between the ages of 30 and 40, because that's my bracket, let's say dating bracket, which is about 15% of the population. I want, level of attractiveness. So I've put in 10 out of 10. I know this sounds really weird, especially, how exactly do you define attractiveness? And the thing is, for each person, it's something different. honestly. So a lot of the people that I like, my friends are like, are you serious? So, it is what it is. Everyone has a different understanding. So I just want to find somebody who will be attractive to me. So I've put that at 10 out of 10. And this percentage was already in the table put in, and it fell in within 5%. So because at the end of the day, even if you look at dating apps, how many people do you swipe? What is it, right? Yes. How many people do you swipe right? Not that many, honestly. Um, so so yeah, let's put this at 5%. And so I'm not 100% sure on this, but probably I would want to be in a monogamous relationship, just because I've never experienced a polyamorous relationship. Honestly, I'm open to it, but since I've never experienced it, I think I would prefer a monogamous one. And it's estimated that around, well, this is honestly, it's my estimation. When I searched for it, it said that, oh, 95% of marriages are monogamous. Well, not exactly, because people cheat as well. So I've taken this into account, and kind of the estimation is around 70% of the population is monogamous. So I've put that in at 70%. Then, speaking of more physical characteristics, I would like, for the person to be, what is it, like one above 180 or above. So that's around 5'11", 6 feet, I guess, for, in the non-metric system. Um, Again, this is, just something that is nice to have, just because finding a person that you're attracted to goes back to, it's so much deeper than, oh, I want someone tall. In most cases, it's rooted back to who you grew up with. And so, for example, who are your quote unquote role models when you were a kid? And for me, I grew up like my father is tall. Most of the men in my immediate family circle, they're all tall, they have hair, they're not balding. So those are two not requirements, obviously, but two things that I would prefer my partner to be tall and have hair. So I've put in these two things. The being tall, that's about 20% of the population, and then having hair. Now, according to keeps.com, as I've heard so many YouTubers promote, basically around 2/3 of men are going to experience male pattern baldness. However, obviously there are ways to overcome that, which I'm in full support of. Honestly. But yes, so I've put this at 35%, just because of people who actually have hair, just because even if you're balding, there are ways to overcome that. There are things you can do. I don't know why men are not doing them. But yeah, it is what it is. And also, again, nothing wrong with being bald. And honestly, okay, this is a side note. But basically, if you find someone attractive, all of those things don't matter. However, I will say that chemistry is something real, as I found out for myself, because a few years ago, already 10 years ago, I was really attracted to this guy. And the thing is, I didn't find him physically attractive, but I did find him intellectually attractive, and there was like a physical attraction as well, just because of how much I liked how smart he was, and how he behaved, etc., etc. So I really did have an issue, because physically not that attractive, intellectually, much better. And so I did try to make it work. And you know what happened? The first time we kissed, I thought he had eaten something that was maybe expired, because it tasted so awful. And I was like, it was an impromptu kiss. It was in the middle of the day. Probably he didn't brush his teeth. Gross, but what are you gonna do? Okay, maybe. Second time we kissed. He even said, because it was in the morning, he even said that he just brushed his teeth. And I was like, okay, now is the time. Now is, perfect opportunity. So we kissed again. Again, same taste. It was awful. And we did, I did want to give him a chance. So we did go on to do other things as well. the taste did not improve. And I was like, I mean, I cannot go on like this. It's just it's not right. And there is a scientific explanation about that, because we, like, probably he had a lot of the bacteria that I have, which is, sounds gross and disgusting, but bear with me. But basically, in order for our imaginary offspring to survive, we would need to have bacteria that is different, so our offspring would have higher chances of survival, which is why you know we think that certain people smell better, certain obviously taste better as well. So I guess we were just maybe too much alike, and that's why it didn't work out. So chemistry, it's a real thing. So moving on. But basically, yes. So yep, what else have I put as a requirement? Oh, it needs to be somebody who speaks English at least. And I thought the percentage on that would be higher, but it's about 16%. Even, yeah, let's put it at 16%. I wasn't aware that so many people in the world didn't speak English, but there you have it. Another thing that I wanted to put in was, well, mindset for me is really important. So putting some, like, but how exactly do you measure mindset, right? So I was very much thinking about that, and because I want to grow as a person, I would need somebody who also wants to grow as a person. And I don't think that's, I mean, everyone says they want to, but at the end of the day, a lot of people just sit around doing nothing about it. So I've put as an I just took as a percent, what was the percentage of of entrepreneurial people in the world, and that fell at around 15%. So those are people who've started a business, maybe have a business, not necessarily, obviously the percentage is going to fluctuate, but at the same time, just people who are a little bit more, you know, open-minded, that good things are possible to happen. So and I think that sounds about right, about 15% of the population. Also, it's proven that couples that have IQ within about 10 points between each other, they perform the best. So I don't know how exactly that is, but let's say that mine is average. So I put in about 100 to 110%, 100 to 110 IQ points, which would mean that the person is of average or slightly above average intelligence. So not somebody who's going to be a know-it-all, because that's also annoying. And that falls at around 16%. What else have I put? I've put in a non-smoker, which is 85% of the population. I've put in, so this is something interesting. I've put in people who want to have kids. This is something that I'm not necessarily, how should they say? I don't know if, that's something I want or don't want at the moment. I think I would want it with the right person, not necessarily on my own. And with millennials, that falls to around 66% of the people. 2/3 of millennials want to have a child. With the way that the world is going, maybe not the most the smartest idea, but yes. Then we have, body type, athletic or at least active. So this is something that for me personally, it's really important. I cannot sit back and just watch all movies all day. I mean, I can do that maybe a day or two, maybe a week even, but not forever. And it's just, yeah, it's important for the person to be active. Maybe not necessarily, to have a six pack or whatever, but yeah. And that would be around. So I found this, percentage based on, I don't know actually where they were getting their statistics from, but this is generally from the US. But it sounds about right. So around 23% of the US population have basically meet the requirement that is needed for exercise. So, I just put it as 23%, sounds about right. And yes. Oh, another very very important fact was that, the single men between the ages of 30 and 40, which are about 44% of the population. However, I was even thinking about that. That doesn't sound right. This is the percentage of the population in their 30s and 40s that are not married, because that's the definition of, the official definition of what a single person is. And I know that, a marriage, I guess, would be harder to break because there would be, the divorce side of things, etc., etc. However, a lot of people nowadays are living without marriage, so I would say that that percentage, instead of being 44, is probably more close to 20%. So this is what I'm gonna put in. And then also, I guess we need to take out, the percentage of, what else is going to be, of straight men, because, or at least bi, right? We need to have some some actual mutual, likelihood of this working out. So, let's say that, okay, maybe I should have googled this. How many okay, percentage of people who are straight. Let's see. LGBTQ plus people fall at about 5% of the population. So, that's interesting. Okay, so let's put this, where is the table? So let's put this at 90%. Yeah, let's put this at 90%. Oops, what happened? And, oh my God, I cannot copy paste. Apparently that's too difficult. So 90%. So yes, basically when I've put in all the percentages, everything that I've listed. Again, this is something that is best case scenario, something that, will probably not come to fruition. Keep that in mind. So the ideal, the odds of me finding the one are basically, let me read this. How many zero is this? 0.000000024%. In other words, that accounts, that amounts to 17 people out of 7 billion. Okay, 17 people. And in order for me to meet at least one person like that, I would need to meet about 500 million people. That sounds doable. That sounds plausible, right? Yes. So what are your odds of finding the one? Mine are, as I said, close to zero. So I do believe actually in working on relationships versus, trying to find that perfect person who's going to fulfill you. That is never going to happen. And, obviously I'm not going to meet anyone, like a person who meets everything that I've set out, to find. But at the end of the day, relationships are about compromise, and they're about, working through them. I can recommend some books on that, even though maybe I'm not the biggest authority, I guess, to talk about these things. However, I do have failed relationships, so I have that going for me. And in the last few years, I've taken a really deep dive into why exactly that happened, because honestly, it was very easy to see what the other person did wrong, but it was very difficult to see what I did wrong. And so I've started, reading about it, and it's actually really interesting. And ladies, to the ladies out there, but not only on, this is actually goes to everyone. It's one thing having these requirements and, a person who has to meet them versus having standards, because I'm not saying you shouldn't have standards. However, it's just, if you do meet somebody that you really like and that you're getting along, maybe give it a chance instead of, ditching that person the first chance you get just because, well, Tinder is out there, or Hinge, or Bumble, or whatever else app you're using, and thinking, I'll find someone better. At the end of the day, are you really with the 0.0? How many zeros is that? I don't know. It's at least 6 zeros, right? Yes. So it's 0.6024% of the population. And I'm sure, these were just very generic requirements that a lot of people have. And yeah, so not great. But yes, happy Valentine's Day again, and let me know in the comments what are your odds, and yeah, what do you think about the whole topic? Do you believe in soulmates? Are you trying to find the one? And I'll see you next time. Bye.